Welcome to Uncovered. It's Wednesday. I'm Anthony. He's Ron. And together we're about to uncover the MAGA propaganda that is not covered by the mainstream and corporate media. Still, Ron, they're still not on it. So much has happened in the last 24, 48 hours, not least the last 7 days since we last spoke on the show, Ron. I do honestly feel that the kind of trajectory of authoritarianism is getting to a point of no return now. And I'm also of the opinion that the more pushback that Donald Trump gets, the more he'll just do something crazy. And that's what worries me. He is increasingly unhinged. We'll talk about that a little bit later. We'll talk about his crazy press conference. We'll talk about him bombing Venezuelan boats in the middle of the ocean. I mean, crazy stuff. But let's start with the Epstein files, because there has been a significant kind of movement outside the steps of the Capitol. Just bring us up to date with what's going on there.
First of all, I just want to give Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna a lot of credit here for what they were able to accomplish today. Was not easy. They pulled 10 of these victims together. They tracked them down. They talked to them. Many of them had never spoken publicly before. They had testified in court at various things, but never in front of the public talked about it. And to get them to come to DC and get in front of the mics and the crowd and the media was really, it was very courageous on their part. But I also give those congressmen credit. And while we're giving credit to, different people, I got to give also credit to like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Nancy Mace. Please don't flag this clip and save it for later to use against me. But I never thought I would say that before. But look, they're the only Republicans who signed on to this discharge petition. They only needed 6 to force it to the floor for a vote, and they only have 4.
Yes.
And, it's Massey and 3 women, Republican women, and that's it. And, you have people like Luna and that fraud Burchett, who were all hell and brimstone that they wanted these released. And then lo and behold, they pull off that BS nonsense James Comer, Mike Johnson charade last night. Oh, we just released all the file. They released nothing new, like virtually nothing significant new at all. But that was like their cover story now to switch their position, as they always do. They always back down when Trump starts threatening them, and Trump threatened them not to vote for this thing, not to sign on to it. So right now we're sort of at a standstill with 4, hoping that this press conference maybe is going to put some pressure on some of the other holdouts here.
Let's take a look at Thomas Massie with his announcement on the steps.
Look, if my legislation were redundant, why would the White House be trying to stop it? Mm-hmm. It's not redundant. There are things that the White House doesn't want out there that my legislation would cause to be released. And even the White House doesn't believe that the Oversight Committee has released everything.
Let's be clear what's happening here, because, this is arguably the biggest story in the world in terms of a sitting president being potentially and allegedly a sexual abuser. He's already kind of seen those charges in civil court. And this is a massive child sex trafficking movement. Jeffrey Epstein, we don't know if he committed suicide or whether he was killed. We've got Ghislaine Maxwell, who's been released from a high-security prison after talking to Donald Trump's personal lawyer, who's now the Deputy Attorney General. If I pitch this to you, Ron, as a film script, you'd be like, nah, it's too ridiculous and far-fetched. And yet this could be the thing that brings down Donald Trump. The saddest part of the story is that these victims, these survivors, are having to step up and relive this stuff. I'll play a clip in a minute of one of the women saying, just hearing Ghislaine Maxwell's voice on that tape, that interview with Todd Blanche, just brought back all of these feelings because it was the same voice that she used to groom her. This is real. This is so real. This is not just politics anymore.
If there's one thing that Trump, has some skill at over the years. It's managing crises, and finding a way out of them, finding a way. He's like the Teflon Don, really, like they used to say about Gotti,
But that's because he either paid people off or sued them.
Well, but politically, I'm saying he always finds a way to navigate, whether it's impeachments, January 6th. I mean, look, you probably could have pulled the country on January 7th, 2021, and 80% of the country probably would have said there's no possible way that this man could ever get elected president again. He's done. And I heard that from everyone. But here we are. I mean, the guy always seems to find a way to navigate these things. But in this particular scenario, this particular case, he has handled this so badly and uncharacteristically for him, where he just literally every single time he's tried to put out the fire, tamp it down, he said the wrong thing, he's done the wrong thing. I mean, calling it a hoax, saying, every time he weighs in on this, has made it worse. And so it's just been grossly mismanaged by him. I think Republicans in Congress are looking on at this aghast. They just can't believe, that at a time that they're trying to somehow defend the budget bill by like renaming it and repackaging it because it's so unpopular, and trying to keep the government open past October 1st with another shutdown looming, they're having to deal with this that just simply will not go away. And it's all Donald Trump's fault, really. I'll say one more thing. The biggest thing that I hear in the replies to posts about Epstein, and it's a lot of people are posting this today, is, hey, why don't the victims just come out and tell us everything that they know? Why don't they name all the names? And what I'll say is, look, one person did that, and she was sued by Alan Dershowitz, and he dragged her through the courts, and it was very ugly and nasty. And so, these women are, if they name names, they're going to be naming names of some of the richest, most powerful people in America who will sue them. And so that's why what they're looking for is the government to do this, to give them protection from these lawsuits. But I think they're now at the point where they're like tired of waiting for the government, and they're just going to band together and do it because I think them coming together and, with each other, some of them meeting each other for the first time and getting to talk amongst each other, that really, when victims band together, it gives solidarity, it gives protection, and it gives courage.
Let's take a look.
The truth is, Epstein had a free pass. He bragged about his powerful friends, including our current president, Donald Trump. It was his biggest brag, actually. And while what I endured will haunt me forever, I live every day with PTSD. I live as a mother trying to raise my child while distrusting a world that has betrayed me. This kind of trauma never leaves you. It breaks.
And we shouldn't forget also that Virginia Giuffre took her own life recently, and she was one of the most prominent of the survivors of this child sex trafficking. Hearing these voices, as you say, I think is really powerful and compelling, to the point that it could be the thing that starts to change people's minds. Now, obviously, there's the public's minds, but there's also the requirement of 2 more Republican minds that need to be changed so that this vote can then go ahead, so that these files can be released. What are the chances of just the kind of emotional stories that we're hearing changing minds of these heartless Republicans?
Well, on one hand, you have Donald Trump threatening Republicans, saying, if you sign on to this, we're coming after you. So that they're weighing that against the political cost of doing nothing. And, Republicans have, in the Trump era in Congress, have mastered the art of keeping their head down and their mouth shut and trying to avoid getting dragged into Trump's controversies. So really, a lot of this is on media, that covers Capitol Hill. Are they going to continue to stick microphones in the faces of these people and ask them about this? Or are they just going to let them slide on it? Because I haven't seen a lot of them asked about Epstein. I follow all the reporters who cover Congress every day, like hundreds of them. And rarely are these people asked about Epstein. So I think what this does is sort of provides an impetus for these reporters, or an excuse to bring this up with them. Like, because look, this press conference just happened. It gave the reporters in the Oval Office today. Trump tried to divert attention away from this. Not very well. He hosted the Polish prime minister or president. I think it's prime minister. So, I mean, that wasn't much of a distraction. And literally, like, every question today from the press to him was about Epstein, and his answers were just dreadful and horrible. So that needs to happen to members of Congress, because it only takes two. And it's just gross and disgusting that they won't even sign on to a bill that would release the files. And the lame excuse that they're giving, well, oversight, James Comer's taking care of this, he's going to be releasing. I mean, come on, nobody believes that. It's just the lamest, most ridiculous excuse. They adjourned Congress for a month to avoid voting on this. Now they're back, and this is what they've come up with. Comer's going to release everything eventually. Come on, nobody's buying that.
Let's hear from another of Epstein and Maxwell's victims.
And many around him knew this. Many participated, and many profited. And yet he was protected. I know what it's like to be trafficked to others. And I know that the files contain the names of powerful men who have been shielded because of their fame or their fortune. So I stand here today, not just for myself, but for every woman who has been silenced, exploited, and dismissed.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we are not asking for pity. We are demanding accountability.
Yeah.
Congress must choose. Will you continue to protect predators, or will you finally protect survivors? Transparency is justice. Release the files, end the secrecy, and stand with us in declaring that no one, no billionaires, no politicians, not world leaders, is above the law.
It is important to hear this stuff, because invariably people they don't get a chance to hear this kind of testimony when it's in closed court hearings and sessions. And so for people to come out onto the steps, you mentioned the Polish president. Was this fly past that drowned out some of this press conference, was that really supposed to be for the Polish president, or was it Trump being like, what do you mean they're doing an Epstein thing on the steps? Get the jets out and drown them out.
Of course, what they're going to say is, we always planned on doing this, but it wasn't. I don't believe it was announced until like 48 hours ago. So it was announced after this press conference was announced. So, strange coincidence. Okay. He wanted to do a flyover to mimic. Did he do a flyover for Putin in Alaska? I don't remember.
There was one, yeah.
This is going to be like the new thing now. Like every time a foreign leader comes, we're going to have a military flyover over the White House. I mean, come on, man. I mean, how much are we going to militarize American politics? It's just, these things are ridiculous. So I don't know if this is like going to be the new routine, or if this was like specifically targeted them. But again, when I talk about how badly Trump handles the optics of this, I mean, the optics of that was terrible. The fact that one of the victims is in the middle of telling her story, and you got, 8 military jets flying over to drown her out. That looked terrible. And by the way, every media outlet was covering this press conference except one, Fox, which of course was, covering Trump in the Oval Office. But I don't think even they were able to avoid him being asked all those Epstein questions. And, what he said is, again, he repeated, this is a hoax. This is all irrelevant. We just need to talk about all the great things I'm doing. Well, you know what? That doesn't work in politics. You can't just say to the media and the press and the public, don't pay attention to that, pay attention to this. That's why I say, like, he's losing his fastball here. He's losing a step, because that is obviously a losing strategy. That does not work. That is what we call the Streisand effect. which is when you tell somebody to ignore something, it makes them pay more attention to it. And that's what's happening here.
But it's also almost like an admission of guilt, as I see it. The fact that he's, it's nothing, it's a Democrat thing. It's like, it's basically, if you are able to speak Trump or translate Trump, it is what it is. He knows that his name is contained within those files. He knows, as Jeffrey Epstein said, they were best friends for 10 years. I mean, I looked on Google Maps the other day to see how far their houses were from each other. It's like a minute and a half, you know?
Close.
Very close. I mean, these guys were like blood brothers, and all of the denials, to me, they just exacerbate the problem that Trump has. Let's take a look at him in the Oval Office trying to deflect on these questions about the Epstein files.
There have been survivors of Jeffrey Epstein speaking at a press conference on Capitol Hill. They're calling for these case files, these documents to be released. And Thomas Massie, who was sponsoring a discharge position to get the House to vote on releasing those documents, says he doesn't believe you're implicated in these files, but many of your friends and donors may be, and he says that's why the Justice Department is redacting them and slow-walking the release. Is the Justice Department protecting any friends or donors, sir?
So this is a Democrat hoax that never ends. You know, it reminds me a little of the Kennedy situation. We gave him everything over and over again, more and more and more, and nobody's ever satisfied. From what I understand, I could check, but from what I understand, thousands of pages of documents have been given. But it's really a Democrat hoax because they're trying to get people to talk about something that's totally irrelevant to the success that we've had as a nation since I've been president. Even if you look at D.C. right now.
Yeah, well, there has been no success of the nation since he's been president. If anything, he has put the U.S. way down the pecking order in terms of the world order. The reality here, though, is that this story is going to follow him around for months unless something changes, right? And people keep saying that. They're like, whatever he does, they go, it's a distraction from the Epstein files. We discussed this last week and we said, well, it can actually be both, because everything that he does is a distraction from the Epstein files, and it is worrying that things seem to be escalating. But, you know, the truth of this, the reality of this, are the voices of those women on the steps of the Capitol today.
The reason why that line doesn't work, Democrat hoax, is because the people who have been calling for the files to be released the loudest for years has been the MAGA Republican base. They are the ones who started all of this. Dan Bongino on his talk show week after week for years.
Who is now the deputy director of the FBI, and of course the leader of the FBI. Kash Patel. Yeah. I
mean, and many, many other people prominent in his movement. It was not Democrats that were calling for it. And look, the other thing is, he's saying, well, this is only being done to hurt me. We know that there are many prominent Democrats in these files. We have no doubt. One of the victims mentioned Bill Clinton today. I mean, we know that, and we don't care. We're like, every Democrat I have ever heard talk about this say, if a Democrat's in the files, hey, that's on them.
A crime is a crime.
Wrong, they should deal with the consequences. Yeah. There's nobody trying to defend anybody involved in this thing. I have not heard any Democrats out there defending Bill Clinton. So this is going to cut both ways. There's going to be big donors and fat cats and elected officials in both parties that get hurt by this. C'est la vie, so be it. That's your problem. You got caught up in this. You participated in this horrible crime. And so you should have to pay the price. We're not the ones trying to defend it. They are.
The world, I don't know why. I've been a combination of frustrated, angry, and depressed in the last week. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I was like on the up again. I was like, actually, this is all, it's going to be okay. And the Democrats are rallying and there's these wonderful protests on the streets and things are changing. And then, 48 hours later, I'm feeling completely different about things. And at the moment, I'm genuinely really, really worried for this country. So many things. I mean, we weren't going to talk about it, but just to mention Florida today announcing that there'll be no more vaccines for kids. I mean, it is insane, Ron, that this is happening. And
you have the, and another thing that's not on our topic list, but you got the Secretary of Energy going on, posting on social media and going on TV saying that solar panels don't do anything. They don't produce any electricity. This is the Secretary of Energy.
Yeah.
He said if you cover the entire world in solar panels, it wouldn't produce enough energy for human supply. Now, I mean, even Elon Musk is like, what the hell are you talking about,
right,
dude? You don't have no idea what you're talking about. Well, this guy came from the oil industry.
Yeah.
All he's trying to do is get rid of all that stuff and get us all on 100% fossil fuels. I mean, so in so many areas, like whether it's science or energy policy or whatever,
health,
they're trying to tariffs. They're trying to take us back 100 years, civil rights, voting rights. In so many areas, they're trying to take us back 100 years and because to them, that robber baron era at the turn of the century, where 25 families had all the wealth in this country, there was virtually no middle class, and the vast majority of people lived, in poverty level, in dangerous working conditions, no health care. That's the era that they think was the best. And Trump says this all the time. That was the golden era of America. And they want to return this country to that moment in time, which for 99.9% of Americans wasn't so golden.
I really hope that people who voted for Trump are starting to see some of this and recognize that, especially in Republican states, I mean, places like Florida and Texas, where things are getting really out of hand, and that very quickly people are going to see that their interests are not being protected, that their rights have gone missing, that their opportunities don't exist anymore. I mean, it is going to set the country back, as you say, decades. But the point that I keep coming back to is that I think that this is a concerted effort to murder people, to effectively kill the poor. Because all of these policies lead towards the reduction of numbers of people because they're going to get sick and they're going to die. And that is ultimately what they want. And, people compare Trump to Hitler and they go, well, Hitler killed 12 million people and Trump's not the same as that. No, trust me, when you start adding up the numbers of people who have died in the hands of Donald Trump over time, and I'm including the people in Yemen, I'm including COVID-19 people, not to mention, I mean, randomly just killing people in the middle of the ocean, a Venezuelan drug boat in international waters, like boom, dropping a bomb, completely against the international law and the Convention on Human Rights. What does this mean now? Does this mean that on a whim, Donald Trump is now at war with Venezuela?
It's funny. They always package things and sell things in a certain way that makes it appeal to people who don't think things through. I kind of want to bring it around in a circle because, I went to the Bernie Sanders, Graham Plattner rally this past Monday, listen to what they had, and they have a similar message, a little different, but similar. But, basically their message is a big part of their message is how the Republicans are able to convince working people, poor people even, and lower middle class people to vote against their own self-interest. How they're able to convince them to do that. And it's not all just like they hate, culture war and they hate people, they create these boogeymans, that's part of it, but it's not the only thing. It's how they package these things. So the Venezuela thing is being packaged as like, this is going to save American lives by, fighting drug trafficking. But meanwhile, it's just like turns all of the international order on its head to where the Trump and they said more is coming. That's what Rubio said today. Many more of these are coming. So because they asked him, they're like, why didn't you because the way you would handle this is interdiction. You stop, the Coast Guard or the Navy stops the boat, boards it, searches it, finds drugs, apprehends the people, prosecutes them. And they've just said, we're not going to do that anymore. We're just going to blow these things up. It's a lot quicker, faster, and cleaner.
I'll show the clip in a second.
How do you know? How do you know that this boat actually had drugs on it? Number one. And what do we just give the death penalty to every person on the boat? What if there was like a 15-year-old kid who's there with his dad, on this boat? They don't know all that. So we're just supposed to like take their word for it that every boat they blow up in the Gulf of Mexico is a drug dealer. We're just supposed to accept their word. How many boats are they going to start blowing up?
But this is why it is so dangerous, because so a handful of Republicans are going to be like, yeah, brown people have been killed by the Trump regime. That's great. But from an international perspective, what does it say about America? That because in international water, they're dropping bombs on boats that are unidentified. It's the same thing with the
migrants. They're trying to get Democrats to defend drug traffickers.
Yeah.
When, again, Democrats are going to say, well, it's not about drug trafficking. It's about principles of international law. And once again, Democrats have to argue these high-minded principles while Republicans have the lowbrow, easily understandable, we're killing drug traffickers.
Right. But it's not a critical argument. This is the point. There is no intellect behind the argument.
Right.
And so, what are Democrats supposed to do? Let's take a look at this clip. It is pretty harrowing. So if you don't want to see a Venezuelan boat containing who knows who, 11 people died in this strike under Donald Trump's orders. It looks like a scene out of Afghanistan or Iraq. It makes me think of the earliest days of TV watching Scud missiles flying. This is unprecedented for the US to take this type of action, as you say, without due process.
And we don't know the level of culpability of every person on that boat. Again, you might have a kingpin on there, but you also might have, mules. And look, I've handled thousands of drug cases as a prosecutor and criminal defense attorney. So, and you have varying levels of degrees of culpability.
Right.
You very well could have somebody on that boat who didn't know what was on it, or, who was along for the ride.
Or was kidnapped even.
Or was kidnapped, or, and the more and more boats they're going to blow up, eventually what's going to happen is you're going to have the wrong target. And they're going to say, oh, no, we don't make mistakes. Yeah. So you're going to believe the military never makes mistakes on these kind of things. They always know exactly who's on the boat, what the boat is. And we haven't even started with the foreign policy issues that this is going to cause with countries in the region.
Yeah.
If we accidentally blow up a Brazilian boat or a Colombian fishing
it's definitely going to happen. But the other thing is, like, the individuals who are running these departments, people like Pete Hegseth and Kristi Noem, and people who have such an extremist view of the world, they are enabling this type of thing. And we've often said that, there is no John Kelly or James Mattis to kind of hold Trump back on this stuff anymore. We're talking about people who are completely mentally unhealthy themselves. The story came out about Pete Hegseth's church's podcast or something that I was reading earlier today, and just some crazy extremist views.
Yeah.
That
his church is nuts.
Right.
Yeah.
That suggest that we're not dealing with even-tempered and people who are able to think critically and understand where America sits and its place in the world, and have any kind of element of humanity about them. All the Hegseth talks about is war fighters. That big announcement that Trump was making yesterday, and everyone was like, oh, what's it going to be? What's it going to be? And then it was like moving Spacecom to Alabama. That was it? Like, that is what we've been waiting 5 days for you to show up and do? Like, really?
And I'm surprised it took him this long. We all knew he was going to do it. It's within the president's power. He promised it during the campaign. This has been Tommy Tuberville's number one issue.
Yep.
And that's his boy. So we knew this was going to happen.
Right.
So it was like, why tease this big announcement and don't even tell anyone what it is?
But it has no bearing on anything. Like, the world is burning, and
the economy of Huntsville, Alabama. That's about it.
Right.
You know?
Now, it's really important we mention what's going on in the world right now, because whilst Donald Trump is trying to deflect the Epstein files, Narendra Modi of India, who is pissed off with Donald Trump over tariffs, wouldn't he put 50% on Indian imports? So
among other things.
So he's done with Trump at the moment, and he's furious. He's also furious about the India-Pakistan war as well, isn't he, where Trump tried to take credit for ending that, which was completely false. He now gets an invitation from Xi Jinping in China, along with Vladimir Putin, and the three of them are hanging out, military parade, huge celebration, and they're literally moving the balance of the world order. They seem and appear more organized and together and united than Western alliances, who had it together until about 8 months ago when Donald Trump came and blew everything up. I mean, this is very, very dangerous, isn't it?
And it wasn't just the three of them. I mean, it was a lot of other leaders of countries that have grievances against Donald Trump, who are also present. And it's like the U.S. has spent so much capital and so much time over the last couple of decades investing in really building trade alliances and trade between the U.S. and China, the U.S. and India, especially, interlinking our economies, making interdependence to keep this from happening, to keep India from closely aligning with Russia, with China. I mean, there's always going to be ties there between some of these countries in various areas, but you don't want them, operating in lockstep in a lot of different areas, especially militarily and energy, exploiting world resources. If these three work together in concert with other aggrieved countries like Brazil, North Korea, around the world, you got a real problem. And Donald Trump has literally done more to bring these people together than any president ever has in history. I mean, he is driving our friends into the arms of our enemies. And this is a problem. And, all he can do is sit and post about it on social media, veiled threats and how upset he is about this whole meeting. Well, you know what? You're the one who what do you expect India to do when you hit them with 50% additional retaliatory tariffs for buying Russian oil, when you won't do that to any other country buying Russian oil? When you constantly, when you call up and say, I want you to nominate me for a Nobel Peace Prize, and then I'll consider lifting tariffs. And Modi's like, what? I'm not doing that. You played no role in this. Well, Pakistan nominated me. They're playing you, dude. What are we going to get in bed with Pakistan against India? Come on.
He is not just the dumbest man in America, possibly the world, but he's also, it's that dumbness mixed with the insanity that makes him the most dangerous person in the world, as seen by dropping a missile on a Venezuelan boat and killing 11 strangers. I mean, it is going to keep getting crazier and crazier and crazier, and I don't know what point. I don't know who. Is the military going to turn on him? Like he says, something needs to change. I mean, it needs to be the Republicans in Congress. I mean, that is really the people that should be looking at the world order and seeing, because I forgot to mention that Kim Jong is there as well. So you've got Jong and Xi and Putin and Modi together, and they're all celebrating each other. It was so weird. I watched much of it, and they were waving him off at the train station, and it was all this weird stuff was happening. Not to mention this military parade that make Trump's military parade look like a kind of children's family fun day, and that won't.
Don't think that didn't bother him either.
Right, he'll be
That
organizing
military
another
parade
one
was
soon.
pretty badass. And China went all out, and he had his rinky-dink little thing. I mean, don't think that did not bother him.
Oh, I'm sure. Let's hear from John Bolton, who got raided last week, talking about
Hasn't stopped him.
Talking about the Trump's effect on India.
I think that's right. It's a series of things that Trump has done that have offended the Indians. On the basic tariffs that Trump wants, which I think as a macro level economic phenomena are a disaster for everybody. But the Indians thought they were in close negotiations to solve this, as Britain did with Trump. And Trump just dismissed it and set 25% tariffs. Then carrying through, as you mentioned, on his threat to either tariff Russia or impose secondary tariffs on countries buying Russian oil and gas, Trump whacked India with another 25%, did not tariff Russia, did not tariff China, the largest purchaser of Russian oil and gas. And then to make it worse, when the recent escalation between Pakistan and India over a terrorist attack in Kashmir occurred, it escalated, then came back down. Trump took full credit for it as one of the 6 or 7 wars that he stopped this year to deserve the Nobel Peace Prize, which has made India incandescent.
He's up to 10 wars now, Ron. 10 wars. He's stopped, ceased, all thanks to him. I want to show the Truth Social post that he posted once he saw that Xi was meeting with Putin and Modi and Kim Jong. It is terrifying, the language. He wrote, "The big question to be answered is whether or not President Xi of China will mention the massive amount of support and blood that the United States of America gave to China in order to help it secure its freedom from a very unfriendly foreign invader." Well, that's a lie, because there was no American blood spilled. "Many Americans died in China's quest for victory and glory." That's not true. "I hope that they are rightfully honored and remembered for their bravery and sacrifice. May President Xi and the wonderful people of China have a great and lasting day of celebration. Please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un as you conspire against the United States of America, President Donald J. Trump." He's frickin' nuts, Ron.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's talking about World War II, when Japan occupied China. I guess that's what he's saying, is that
no American lives were lost.
They should
in that.
Yeah, very few. They should try. Yeah, the U.S. was focused in a lot of much more focused. They had some troops in China, but not much. They were much more focused in other areas. But that's not the point. The point is, like, China's holding this thing, and he's saying you should honor America. As they're celebrating whatever, defeating the Japanese or kicking the Japanese out of their country. You should give America all the credit. I mean, again, this idea of like other countries need to bow down to the United States and thank them. And
well, it's like getting Zelensky to say thank you.
I mean, there's plenty that they could say that America did to them, right. Whether it's the Opium Wars, the occupation of, the Korean War, where we fought against China. I mean, there's so many things, but, really the key part of that is not all that nonsense, which is just stupid, just shows him being an idiot. It's the last sentence.
Yes.
Where he talks about them conspiring against the United States. Well, you know what? Yeah, that is what they're doing. They're meeting together to find out how they can thwart the United States efforts to punish them in a variety of different ways, whether it's sanctions on Russia, which, or trying to prevent them from selling their oil in the international market, or, the China tariffs, the India tariffs. Yeah, they're trying to figure out workarounds to, hey, okay, we're not getting soybeans from the United States anymore. We'll get it from Brazil. That is what they're doing. If you want to call that conspiring, well, it's called diplomacy is really what it is.
Trump is just making things worse for everybody. And this is the part of the problem with having someone who is kind of intellectually bankrupt, supposedly in control of the former free world, is that as he steams forward, there is literally like cars crashing behind him, nations crashing behind him. I'm really worried about the US. I really am. Not from an invasion perspective, but from the perspective of it being completely isolated from the rest of the world. And America first as a concept and as a policy is all very well, provided that the wheels of capitalism and world markets continue. But the dollar is not going to remain the gold standard at this rate.
Well, to that point, look at how the world is viewing this tariff decision that just got handed down by the court, right? Which is now going to, where they said Trump's power to issue all these tariffs is he didn't have the power, right? And so it's going to go. So you have all these countries that have been trying to negotiate trade deals, and now they're sitting there or have negotiated some deals, who are now sitting back going, wait a minute.
Yeah.
How do we know any of this is going to stick? And then you have the bond market, which was starting to look good because of the tariff revenue. Because see, bond market looks at these tariffs and the revenue pouring in as a good thing for them. It's not necessarily for the overall economy, but for them, because the debt's being paid down. And so they were feeling a little bit good looking at all this money pouring into the treasury from tariffs, saying, oh, the U.S. debt is coming down, and that's good for the bond market. But now they're like, oh, shit, this could be our doomsday scenario, because if this is upheld by the Supreme Court, the United States government is going to have to refund all that tariff money that they've collected, which we don't have. I mean, we're putting that towards our deficit. So we're actually could be in a position where a few months from now, the United States government is going to be hit with a bill, of $500 billion to pay back to thousands of companies all over the world. And that is an absolutely insane scenario. So countries don't know what to do with their trade negotiations. Bond markets don't know what to do. I mean, the only thing that we have is the stock market just continues to remain giddy, thinking everything's going to be fine, which, I've lost all faith in investors.
There is going to be a massive, massive recession. I mean, the economists are talking about it.
Everything looks bad.
Everything looks bad.
Mortgages are, closings being canceled. Everything is record highs, record high job openings being available, record high closings falling through. Just across the board, the indicators are bad.
But people are keeping stum about it because a lot of the people that supported Trump, and were fed this kind of false narrative that everything was going to be great under him. But a lot of people are currently not paying their bills. I watched a YouTube compilation yesterday. You may have seen it. This woman put it together, right? Of all of these different people posting on YouTube or on TikTok or Instagram saying that they have no money and that they are not paying their energy bills and that their credit cards are maxed out and they are silently suffering. And they are the first people to suffer. I mean, we say that the tariffs are paid for by the consumer. The cost of everything is already going up. And, and I'm worried come January, once Trump's kind of deregulation of things kicks in, the cost of healthcare, the cost of energy, it's just going to go through the roof. And
yeah, look,
this is very serious.
I do all the grocery shopping for my family, have for many, many years. And all the cooking. And so I'm very well aware, unlike Trump, of how much stuff costs. I was at the grocery store this morning. I was like, wow, literally like everything continues to go up. And, we're deporting farm workers. Yeah. I mean, we're deporting construction workers. It's just everything. I think it's a perfect storm. And, it's bad for the United States. It's bad for the world. But, it's going to be really bad for the Republican Party, because if this economy really tanks, it's going to tank at a very bad time for them, which is going to be around this time next year, right before the midterms, is when things are probably going to be very bleak unless some very positive news happens. By the way, one more footnote on that. The jobs report comes out Friday. Why is this significant? Because remember, the last jobs report resulted in the Bureau of Labor Statistics person getting fired. So it's going to be very interesting to watch this one.
We have a Heritage Foundation person who's cooking the books now.
Yeah, and see like what these numbers look like. I mean, they might come out and say, oh, record jobs numbers all of a sudden, when everyone knows there's just no way.
But I heard Trump talking about this in the Oval Office today, just lying through his veneers about everything from the cost of living, coming down and the record amounts of money coming in. I mean, when he talks of $1 trillion worth of investment, it is 99% of that is a lie. It simply isn't coming. These are promises, or these are things that people might have said just to give him something to announce. And in fact, it's probably a good time to show this Kristi Noem clip where she lies through her teeth on behalf of the Trump administration, saying, she's talking about LA and sending the troops in, but this is the level of lying. She was basically, and Trump's also saying that that Los Angeles was about to fall if he hadn't have sent the troops in. Let's take a quick look.
But we will continue to go after the worst of the worst across the country, like President Trump has told us to do, focusing on those that are perpetuating murder and rape and trafficking of drugs and humans across our country, knowing that every single citizen deserves to be safe.
Part of what distinguished the Los Angeles operations, however, is that National Guard troops were there, in essence, protecting or backing up those federal agents as they conducted operations. Is that what we should expect to see in Chicago?
That always is a prerogative of President Trump and his decision. I won't speak to the specifics of the operations that are planned in other cities, but I do know that LA wouldn't be standing today if President Trump hadn't taken action. Then that city would have burned down if left to the devices of the mayor and the governor of that state. And so the citizens who live there, the small business owners in downtown LA, they're thankful that President Trump came in with federal law enforcement officers and helped support keeping those streets open, keep their homes and businesses from burning down, and made sure the law and order was restored.
I just want to clarify one thing you said there. You said LA wouldn't be standing if not for these federal deployments?
So many of those homes and businesses that were in downtown LA and in those areas were dealing with riots and violence, and coming in and bringing those federal law enforcement officers in was incredibly important to keeping peace. And so we are grateful that President Trump was willing to send resources and people in order to enforce the law. And Ed, since then, we have arrested 5,000 dangerous illegal criminals out of LA and removed them from our country and had them face justice for their crimes.
Oh, yeah, well, Ed needs to resign from Face the Nation. I'm sorry, because, giving the person the opportunity to repeat her lies is not holding someone to account.
Yeah, that's a real good follow-up. Wait, did you just say LA would burn to it? Is that what you said? Can you say that again?
Say it again.
That's great. That's great follow-up.
Yeah, brilliant journalism.
How about, hey, the Guard operated in about 3 city blocks. That's it. So you're telling me that they saved the city? And by the way, they're the ones who caused the protest.
Right, I know.
With the raids on Home Depot, in LA.
Right.
Like, they literally started the whole thing. And so then they send troops in, and then they claim, oh, we started the fire, and then we put the fire out and saved everyone.
Yeah, well, this is Trump, isn't it? You cause a problem, and then you claim you're the only person that can fix it.
Right.
And he was saying exactly the same thing today about DC, and all the restaurant owners, they're so thrilled now because you couldn't go out before without getting shot. I mean, he used to say this about groceries when he was on the campaign trail. You can't go and buy groceries where you have to show ID without getting shot. I mean, people, and I'm talking about Republicans and Trump supporters, they must know that this is not true. I mean, or is it that they just don't leave their little square mile, and consequently they don't know what's going on in the next city?
Well, that's a big part of it for sure. But, the Republicans who work in and around D.C. know that that's not true.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, there's bad neighborhoods in D.C. that you don't want to be at 3 o'clock in the morning, but that's not what he's talking about. I mean, he described it as like a hellscape where nobody would go out to dinner. Nobody would go. Funny, anybody's been to DC, there's quite a few restaurants that are very expensive, that are hard to get reservations at. So before,
Yes.
now they're easy to get reservations at. But look, I mean, we said this, if you flood a city with troops, of course crime's going to go down, because people aren't going to go out. They aren't going to do anything. They're going to stay home.
And people are not going to visit.
That's not
as
how
well.
America wants to live. And I get the point of like, crime is, I agree that crime is bad in a lot of cities in America. I also disagree with a lot of the criminal justice practices that occur in a lot of cities. I think that it's too lenient in a lot of places. Stipulate to all that. But the solution is not to send in the United States Marines.
I mean, there are advisories now in other countries where state departments are saying, do not travel to America. And I think people need to realize, and Trump certainly needs to realize, that the knock-on effect of all of this is that tourism is going to be down 50% soon. People are not coming here. I've been getting all these emails from holiday companies and people who are really they're phoning, saying, well, would you like to book? Would you like to book? I never hear from people before. And all of a sudden, there is a desperation in the tourism industry where he has caused this.
The
no
irony
one
of that
is going to want to
like,
come here.
The place hardest hit is Las Vegas.
Right.
And the irony of that is, that was a city that voted Democrat the last few presidential elections that flipped. That Trump flipped because of no tax on tips. It literally flipped that one issue. And I was talking to the guy who gave Trump the idea this week about no tax on tips prior to his Nevada rally. He was doing a big rally. This guy is the one who gave him the idea. Hey, promise him no tax on tips. You'll win Nevada. And he did. And he did because of that issue. And lo and behold, the problem is what you hear so much from so many service workers in Las Vegas is no tax on tips is great but we don't have any customers anymore that are giving us any tips.
Right.
That city has been hurt more than any other city in America by Trump's policies. So, it's kind of ironic.
We're going to take a quick break, but I want to come back and talk about a really serious thing that is that Governor Pritzker has had to kind of come out and talk about, an extension of this militarization. And we'll also talk about Donald Trump's health and him going missing for a few days. We'll do that next on Uncovered. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Prize Picks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 players' stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks is also the best way to get action on sports in more than 40 states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Prize Picks is the best way to win cash this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your takes into cash all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to win cash while watching sports. Join millions of users and sign up today. Download the app today and use code UNCOVERED to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code UNCOVERED to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Whether you eat to live or live to eat, let Cook Unity fuel your day with fresh flavors crafted by renowned chefs. Their ever-expanding menu of over 300 small-batch meals are tailored to your lifestyle, dietary needs, and cravings. Get fresh, not frozen, ready-to-eat meals delivered directly to your door by going to cookunity.com/uncoveredfree or enter code UNCOVEREDFREE before checkout for free premium meals for life. It's easier to achieve wellness goals with satiating, nutritious meals made by top chefs that are ready in minutes. Nutritious meals are easy to find on the personalized app. Simply browse by chef, protein, cuisine, or dietary need. You can even filter macros down to the gram. Meals are delivered fully cooked. Just heat up in as little as 5 minutes. Choose from a rotating seasonal menu of over 300 meals or let Cook Unity provide personalized recommendations. Commitment-free subscriptions start as low as $11 a meal. Skip deliveries, pause, or cancel every time. Fuel your day with the freshest, best-tasting meal delivery made by award-winning chefs. Go to cookunity.com/uncoveredfree or enter uncovered free before checkout for free premium meals for life. That's free premium meals for life using code uncoveredfree or going to cookunity.com/uncoveredfree. And you can find links to our sponsors in the description below. Ron, okay, let's talk about what's happening in Illinois and Pritzker, because he has had to kind of step up and basically announce, saying yet again, we don't want troops coming here because Donald Trump's threatening it. But isn't the difference this time that this isn't about the local National Guard? This is about a National Guard coming from Texas, which is basically America going to war with America. Can you explain this for us?
Yeah, sending the Texas National Guard into Chicago, it's like you're the South is accomplishing something that they couldn't accomplish during the Civil War, invading a major northern city. It's absolutely insane. And, we had the court decision this week, albeit from California, but it was from a U.S. District Court judge saying that that Trump violated the Posse Comitatus Act by sending Marines and National Guard into L.A., and that they are not allowed to do any law enforcement at all. They are only allowed to guard federal properties or guard federal agents, but that is it. They're not allowed to do any hands-on law enforcement at all. It violates federal law that's been in effect for many, many decades. So you're not allowed to use the U.S. military against United States citizens unless, of course, there's some kind of insurrection. That's the exception, and the court held there was not an insurrection to that level. So we see what he did in D.C., but see, that doesn't apply to D.C. because D.C. is a federal territory. So if he tries to do this in Chicago, which it appears he is going to do, Pritzker said that this is apparently going to happen. Trump has repeatedly said this is going to happen, that Chicago is next. And it's not going to be the last, but Chicago is a huge city. They don't want these people there. And I can see major problems with this situation. I can see confrontations. I can see escalations, potentially violent protests.
All the things that Trump wants.
He's trying to instigate a problem, right?
Yeah.
And he's targeting, of course, blue states, blue cities. He's not sending these people into New Orleans, in Louisiana. He's sending them to Chicago. So this is it's a constitutional crisis. It's a crisis of major proportions. And, but it doesn't seem like Trump is in any way deterred. And it doesn't seem like there's anyone in the Republican Party who will stand up and say, we shouldn't be doing this.
We felt a certain way when he sent the National Guard into California. We felt a certain way. We also felt a certain way when it happened in D.C. But now to take a National Guard from another jurisdiction and send them into Chicago is an escalation on a level that we could never have predicted. And I can only assume that this is all leading to him being able to kind of call for martial law and then cancel the midterms. Is that too much of a stretch?
Well, no, I don't think cancel the midterms, but I think use guardsmen in certain targeted areas to intimidate voters. I think that is the plan. I'm not in on, as you know, I'm not in on elections are going to be canceled. I'm not buying that.
You saw what he did with Zelensky the other week, didn't he? Where he kind of pretended like he was like, oh, that's a good idea. Oh, what, you mean you've not had any elections in and so in Ukraine, and so, well, what would they say if I did that? I mean, he is playing people and pushing people's buttons.
Sure.
He knows that it's an option.
And he's teasing, the dictator thing a lot lately and using that term. He's saying, well, look, I wiped out crime in DC by being a dictator. So maybe a lot of people are saying maybe a dictator is not so bad. He said that. So it's all these trial balloons. It's pushing and prodding, seeing how far he can go, seeing what he can get away with, who's going to push back. And as long as there's not sufficient pushback from various places, he's going to keep going.
Yeah.
How far that's going to be, I don't know. But, I think Chicago is not going to be, I think Chicago's going to happen. I don't think that's going to be the last one. And I think that this is going to continue to escalate. It's, again, things that the military that he wanted to do his first term, and the military leaders told him that he couldn't, just like he wanted to start bombing cartel people in the Gulf and in Mexico in his first term, and they told him no. He's doing that now.
Yep.
And he's sending National Guard into cities, which the guys in his first term told him he shouldn't do, and he's doing it with this crew. There's no one anywhere in the party or inside the government willing to stand up and tell him no. And, a handful of a lot of Democrats are, but he
doesn't
necessarily care. We're not getting the strong pushback from leadership.
No.
We get slogans and strongly worded letters.
Yeah, I read a op-ed by a friend of mine, Mehdi Hassan, yesterday, saying that Schumer and Jeffries need to resign.
Yeah, I saw it.
And I read it, and I was like, yeah, I think we need to start saying that stuff out loud now, because at what point of this insanity, of what point of this craziness, do we just kind of fall to the dictatorship? You have to have strong leadership in opposition, if otherwise it's an uprising of the people and a civil war, and maybe he wants that too.
Yeah, I mean, this is a controversial topic among Democrats. How far do you go in criticizing your own party in the middle of this? Because there's certainly a lot of Democrats who feel like unity is the most important thing right now. It's the only thing we got. And I'm a big unity guy. I'm a big team player guy. Like that's a big thing for me. Probably a lot more than a lot of other people. But at the same time, like I draw the line. Look, there's people out there that trash. That there's Democrats out there on social media and in media who make a career out of trashing the Democratic Party. Like, that's their gig. That's their jam. I'm not that guy, and I don't believe that that's what we should do, burn it all down. But we have a problem at the very top, at the leadership level. Yeah. And I've said it before, we have so many great people underneath them that could pick up the baton and kick some serious ass, and do really well. And they are out there doing those things.
100%.
But they're not in the top leadership positions. And, I've been one to say, let's give them time. Let's be patient. Let's see what they can do. I'm always in that camp.
The country is burning.
How long do we wait?
The other point that Hassan made in the article was that both Jeffries and Schumer, neither of them would endorse Zoran Mamdani as the mayor of New York.
Correct.
And that speaks volumes, because he is a brilliant candidate.
Well,
he is clearly what the people want.
There's one reason why they can't. They both take in gobs and gobs of money from AIPAC.
Yeah.
And that, and that's a bright line, hard no thing. If they support Mamdani, AIPAC is not going to support them. And so, that's part of the problem, and that's the big Israeli PAC that contributes boatloads of money to people in both parties. And that's a big issue inside. It's not a big issue in the Republican Party. They don't care. They're fine. They're fine with that, except for like Green and a few others that don't like it. But,
but that's going to have to change soon as well. I mean, I saw a video of a member of the Israeli army refusing to go out and carry out Netanyahu's orders yesterday. You know, I mean, we're going to see some change there as well.
If he held an election, he would lose. And you know, you hear Republicans talking about, oh, Zelensky needs to hold elections while his country is occupied, but you don't hear them pressing Netanyahu to hold elections, do you? You know, you don't hear Trump talking about that.
This whole system that, you know, some Democrats claim that we need to go back to, that's not the way America survives this period.
It's not going back to anything.
You don't want to go
never
back to
going to be
anything.
Like pining away for the 90s or something.
No.
That's gone.
There needs to be systemic change, but it needs to be done really recognizing how the world has changed.
Yeah,
because
the Republican Party is never going back to like George Bush conservatism. Like, it's dead, it's gone, it's buried. Forget about it.
The Democrats are also not going back to Obama years either.
Yeah.
And that's what's important. Okay, I want to show this clip of J.B. Pritzker because, you know, he's a wonderful orator and it's really important to hear what he has to say here.
I'm aware that the President of the United States likes to go on television and beg me to call and ask him for troops. I find this extraordinarily strange as Chicago does not want troops on our streets. I also have experience asking the President for assistance, just to have the rug pulled out from underneath me when execution meets reality. I refuse to play a reality game show with Donald Trump again. What I want are the federal dollars that have been promised to Illinois and Chicago for violence prevention programs that have proven to work. That is money that Illinois taxpayers send to the federal government, and it's an insult to any and every citizen to suggest that any governor should have to beg the president of any political party for resources owed their people.
I mean, that's the other thing that we haven't really talked about yet is just the withholding of FEMA funds, the withholding of the... I mean, they think it's about, you know, or they claim that it's about, you know, reducing cost and paying down the deficit. I don't believe the deficit is going to be paid down at all. I mean, how much did it cost to send those planes overhead, drowning out the sound of the Epstein conference this morning? Do you know what I mean? I mean, the waste, the money he spends golfing is more than they're going to be saving supposedly with these deficits. But when human lives are at stake, and governors are begging. I mean, California's never going to get its wildfire money, is it? I mean, these are the types of blackmail moments that Trump is famous for.
The reason why our authoritarian takeover movement is going to be different than any other in history around the world is because of our peculiar federalist system, where we have states individually that send in money and then like get money back as individual entities. Other countries are not set up that way. And Trump has figured out that the way to coerce, to take things over, to force people to do what you want them to do, whether they disagree with you or not, is to withhold money. And that's where
like
it's
a mob
different.
boss.
Other authoritarians use the military to take over their country and suppress things. He is using money and choking off a state of federal dollars, with withholding disaster aid, withholding funding for hospitals, for schools, is a powerful coercive tool. And this is what Donald Trump has figued out. That is the tool, not the military like other countries have used in the past. That is the tool that he is using for his authoritarian takeover of the United States. And that's what Pritzker and Newsom and other governors are pushing back on, because you have some governors that have taken the opposite approach, like Whitmer and others who have avoided having this doomsday scenario of Trump threatening to withhold funds by working with him, compromising, not criticizing him, And, so you have those two approaches by Democratic governors.
It's not going to work. I mean, it's not going to work for her. Certainly what I am interested in is what Newsom's been talking about, which is withholding federal funds. And Trump's like, well, we're going to sue you if you do that. But what other option is there if the money is being held to ransom in this way? I mean, think about what a terrible person you would have to be to withhold money for disaster relief because, you didn't like the way that you were spoken to. I mean, it's as simple as that.
What he's doing, again, funding for law enforcement, funding for prisons.
Yeah.
I mean, the federal government provides supplemental funding, training programs for police, drug rehabilitation programs. There's literally thousands of areas where the federal government provides supplementary assistance to states in a lot of different areas. And if he threatens to take that away, arguably that's a more powerful tool than sending in the military.
Well, he's shutting down the Department of Education, so that will stop education funds from going to educate children. I mean, I was so worried about that. My kids are in public school. I looked up to see how much of their annual budget was federal. Yeah. And it was 9%. Well, 9% they can probably make up with donations from parents, but they shouldn't have to do that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that doesn't sound like a lot, but that's significant. I mean,
it's huge.
If the school has to cut 9% of their budget, that hurts. So, so this is the new thing, and we've never seen a president ever do that before. We have never seen a president threaten to withhold federal funds that states are entitled to that's been enacted by Congress. That's the key point, is that Congress approved these funds. It was passed through negotiations, through votes, through committees, arguments, compromises. Congress hammers out these spending bills.
Yeah.
And then all the president's supposed to do is dispense the money, and he's grabbing it and holding on to it and basically impounding it, which to me he has no constitutional authority to do. And that's going to be another case that's going to hit the Supreme Court. But I have a feeling that next year is going to be the year of the Supreme Court, where there's my fear, because all of this shit that Trump is doing this year is all going to hit the Supreme Court next year in so many areas. And that's where the rubber is really going to meet the road. Because if we get a bunch of 6-3 decisions saying Trump can do whatever the hell he wants, meaning any president can do whatever the hell he wants, then this Supreme Court has radically transformed our government just simply in how it interprets the Constitution. I fear that. So they're either going to step up and rein this guy in, and then it's going to be a question of, is he going to follow the Supreme Court, or they're just going to say he can do whatever he wants.
I'm worried that he's actually going to pack the court with more conservatives. I mean, he has hinted at that before. And just because there's a 6-3 majority right now, he got so much pleasure from bringing in the 3 new ones last time. I mean, there's no limit on how many Supreme Court justices you can have, right? So why not put it to 12 and put a bunch more far-right nationalists on the bench?
I mean, we heard that a lot from Democrats the last 4 years.
And nothing.
Before Trump took office.
Nothing.
We've heard, I mean, that's a subject that has come up every single presidency since I've been alive, has talked about doing that.
But Trump is just crazy enough to do it. This is my point.
Yeah.
Is that all the rules
if
go
they
out the
rule
window.
against him, look, if they make a series of rulings against him, especially the tariff one, but many other things, the question is, how will he react to that? Will he react to that by ignoring them and just doing what he wants and saying, no, you're not telling me what I'm going to do? Or, is he going to do something along the lines of what you suggested, or something else? We don't know. But this year is the year of where he's flexing his muscles and pushing the edges of the envelope constitutionally on his authority. Next year is going to be the year of the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Is
the Supreme Court going to do anything about it? How much power does the Supreme Court think the president of the any president has? And by the way, what comes around goes around, that if they make this all-powerful president and give him all these new powers, as they did with immunity, creating immunity for a president, that cuts both ways, and that could come back to bite him. So to bite Republicans.
But you make a very interesting point, is when you said, is Trump even going to do what the court says? Well, there's been two major rulings in the last 24 hours. One about, the fact that it was illegal to send the troops into LA. Well, they allowed them to keep 300 troops there, and Trump is kind of pushing that message. So that really hasn't changed anything. And the other one was about sending these people to Venezuela. And Trump loses both these major cases, and yet it's probably not going to change anything with regard to his policies.
Yeah, I mean, on the Venezuela thing, he finds a different way to work around the decision. And on the LA decision, the LA judge did say that they can keep troops there to guard federal buildings, but not do anything else. So what Trump is saying is, okay, well, that's all they're going to do.
Well, but
while
he calls
we
it a
appeal
win.
the ruling.
Right.
So, yeah, there's always a way that they work around. Like Kilmar, he's ordered to come. Abrego Garcia, they order him to bring him back. Well, what do? They immediately charge him with a BS crime.
Yeah, send him to Uganda.
They're always looking for a way to work around the court decision and to get you another way, because they know it takes so long for lawsuits to get back up to the courts.
But what you've just described is a lawless nation. I mean, it's all very well, some kind of rogue lawmaker ignoring a lower court ruling or something, where the president of the United States ignoring very high-level courts and potentially the Supreme Court. This is, you said it was a constitutional crisis. I mean, we're way past that now. This is a crisis of proportions that are almost inconceivable, and yet people are just carrying on like it's a regular day, and yet the U.S. government has been taken over by fascists, and people are so broke they cannot stop working to pay attention to it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and you just wonder what is going to be the breaking point for people, including a lot of people who voted for Trump. I'm not talking about the MAGA cult.
No,
I'm talking about all the others that voted for him.
I was
that aren't
thinking about this,
cult.
Ron. He doesn't need the base anymore, right?
Well, not him personally, but
his movement,
the party does.
Yeah, but if they're not gonna, if they've got the elections sorted, then they're not going to need that core base. That core base that he was always playing to at the rallies, when we would cover the rallies and see the same people time and time again. These are going to be the forgotten MAGA supporters who spent their last dime on merchandise. He doesn't need those people anymore.
That's right.
Doesn't talk to those people. He now has control of the...
Stopped holding rallies, didn't he?
Right. The House, the Senate, the Executive, and the Supreme Court. He is invincible. And as he keeps saying, I am the chief law enforcer. I am the law. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about, it's so depressing. Let's talk about the CDC for a minute, because this is very interesting, isn't it? I mean, RFK Jr., probably the last person you would ever trust to, I wouldn't let him babysit my kids, let alone make decisions about vaccines. Now we have a whole bunch of senior CDC people have walked out en masse. They've written a letter, kind of an open letter, complaining about RFK, not just crashing and burning the CDC, but basically causing potential harm to American citizens too. They wrote, we have each had the honor and the privilege of serving as director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, either in a permanent or acting capacity dating back to 1977. Collectively, we spent more than 100 years working at the CDC, the world's preeminent public health agency. We served under multiple Republican and Democratic administrations, every president from Jimmy Carter to Donald Trump, alongside thousands of dedicated staff members who shared our commitment to saving lives and improving health. What Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has done to the CDC and to our nation's public health system over the past several months, culminating in his decision to fire Dr. Susan Menares as CDC director days ago, is unlike anything we have ever seen at the agency and unlike anything our country has ever experienced. I mean, they're not mincing their words, Ron.
I mean, this was set off by, this is not like 6 months ago where they're going against Biden appointees or people that are holdovers from the Biden administration. This is a Trump appointee who just took office as CDC director 2 months ago. And RFK Jr., who was asked repeatedly in his Senate confirmation hearings by people like, and interviews by people like Susan Collins or Bill Cassidy, who's a physician, or the one in Iowa, Joni Ernst, all these people, Tom Tillis, who expressed concerns about his lies and conspiracies over the years, and RFK lied through his teeth, assured them, oh, no, I'm going to follow science. I'm going to do this and that. And I think for about 2 months, he was kind of on his best behavior, after he was confirmed. And then he's just gone full conspiracy theorist.
Well, as we all knew he would, right?
We all knew he was lying to them.
Yeah.
And so what you have is you have all of these people now at HHS where he is ordering them to do things that they know is unsafe, unethical, wrong, not supported by science. All his quack theories that he's developed over many years, reading things on the internet, he is now ordering them to implement, and they're refusing. And because they know the harm that it's going to do to society, this is going to get real dark, real bad, real fast, because I listened to this guy in 2020, in 2021, in 2022, as he gave speeches all over the world and in podcasts. So this is why I was so afraid of RFK Jr., because I know what a wacko this guy is, and putting him in charge of public health is complete insanity. And now the rubber is meeting the road. By the way, 1,000 employees of HHS just signed a letter protesting this. And the first reaction among many in right-wing media and their echo chamber is, we need to fire all 1,000 of those people.
And they will. That's my worry, is that
Trump is a lot of them
mad enough to do it, because, when they first announced RFK Jr. for this position, and everybody lies at their confirmation hearings. I've worked that out now in this country, from RFK to Brett Kavanaugh, nobody tells the truth. But the point is that I thought it was a joke when they were seriously considering a quack and a conspiracy theorist for a serious public health role. I honestly thought even Trump is not so crazy as to do this.
I did too. I predicted that he was going to double cross RFK.
I remember.
I said, no, he's not going to give him this job. He's going to give him some advisory role. And
to give him the whole of HHS and the CDC in this way.
Complete nutty.
Nuts. And so the effect of it is that kind of ratified in Florida that lunatic guy there who now is banning all vaccines for children. I mean, we're talking about measles, mumps, rubella, all of the important vaccines that stop children from dying in childhood. None of that now is mandated. And that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for RFK Jr. and him kind of being in this senior position. It's very, very worrying. I should mention, I was reading this morning about Newsom has got together with a few other states, and they're actually going to protect vaccines, and they're creating their own health agency for democratic states. You heard about this? It's kind of brilliant.
Yeah, I did. And that's probably what's going to happen. The interesting thing is you have people like Cassidy and Susan Collins who voted for this guy who are up for re-election, in next year. And they're already kind of hyperventilating because, they were the people who cast the deciding vote to get this guy over the line. And, again, they're just like, it's all tepid stuff. Well, we need to form a committee and we need to look into this. Look, the thing is, who they're going to replace. These are Trump appointees that quit, that resigned in protest.
Yes.
Trump, these are the people that RFK Jr. picked for these jobs. Even they are like, this guy's crazy, right? Imagine who they're going to replace these people with. I mean, it's just going to be
clowns.
Absolutely insane what is going to happen. And we're talking about food safety. But, then you look at the other side of the coin. One of his big things in the MAGA movement, and a lot of people who followed him, one of their main things that they wanted banned was the chemical that's in Roundup, because they believe that this is contaminating the food supply. What do you call it? I don't know what the chemical is, but they wanted this banned. Mm-hmm. And so, he came in and he started talking about this. And guess what happened? The farmers, Big Ag, called up some Republican members of Congress who called Trump, who called RFK and said, stop talking about banning this chemical. And guess what happened? RFK hasn't mentioned it since. So what do we know about RFK? Yeah, he believes in all these quack conspiracies,
but he has his price.
If Donald Trump, he can be bought easily by corporations. He's not a true believer in these things. He's easily moved. He's interested. His priority is RFK.
Because being a conspiracy theorist is a job. That's what he's done for a living.
Yeah.
That's how he
made a lot of money off it.
The most money, right?
Yeah.
And it's very easy to kind of lie about stuff and be a terrible person and, entrap people and have them kind of send you money. It is very easy to do that. I mean, Trump's been doing it his whole life. And so, these are the people they keep company with. But RFK Jr. has managed to get the fluoride removed from the water supply, which is extremely dangerous. And that's a conspiracy theory that was going on since when I was a child.
Yep.
It's ridiculous.
Yep.
I really worry about the health of
the childhood vaccines, what we just saw in Florida.
Yeah.
That's the next thing.
Yeah.
Because Trump's against childhood vaccines.
Right. Because he doesn't think critically. And, they demonized...
He's been against them ever since Barron was born.
They demonized Dr. Anthony Fauci, right? One of the greatest public health servants that America has had, who devoted 40, 50 years of his life. And the guy has been completely demonized, even though he
lives in Italy now. He doesn't even live in the United States anymore.
Get the hell
out of here. I don't blame him.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But I dread to think what would happen if another pandemic came around. I mean, there would be potentially tens of millions of deaths with Trump in charge and RFK Jr. in charge. I would say, if you went for a surgery, would you want your surgeon to wear a mask or not?
we have never been less prepared
Yeah.
for a pandemic or a natural disaster than we are right now in 100 years.
Finally, let's talk about Donald Trump's health. Now, I didn't really cover this story at all because I am aware of the fact that Trump is old and tired and a bit ill and lazy more than anything. And when, I think I mentioned last week, I looked at his public schedule and there wasn't really anything on it. And I was just like, well, that's no surprise because he doesn't really do anything anyway. But what happened with this period of him? Was it 5 days when he didn't make any public apperances? And so
it was 6 days.
6 days. And so everybody is like, is he dead? Is he dead? Could he be dead? Is he really ill? Is something terrible happened? I've never seen or heard so many people be so excited about the potential demise of one person before. I want to play this clip. Scott Jennings posted it. This is just some audio of Trump on the phone during that period.
The last day of it. It was 6 days. This was day 6.
Okay, yeah. Where he does sound a little rough. He's also doing all his usual routines where he gets into the rhythm of churning out the same stories over and over again. Here he is.
I'm very disappointed in him. He and I always had a great relationship. I'm very disappointed. Thousands of people are dying. They're not Americans that are dying, but they're Russians and they're Ukrainians, and there's thousands, and it's a war that makes no sense. And it would have never started if I were president, and that's what bothers me even more because the election was totally rigged, and it's a shame. We'll see what happens, but I'm very disappointed in President Putin. I can say that, and we'll be doing something to help people live. It's not a question of Ukraine. It's help people live. 7,000 people are dying every single week, soldiers mostly. But 7,000 people. And if I can help to stop that, I think I have an obligation to do it.
Yeah, meanwhile, he's killing potentially 18 million people by shutting down USAID. But I digress. I have a theory that he's in bed when he's on the phone here. And when people lie down, their voice changes because you can just the angle of being in bed, it kind of can croak you up a bit. Do you think there's more to it than that?
Yeah, I do. And I have no issue with all the wild speculation and theories. I've written about, various different things because, look, here's what we know. They will never, ever tell us the truth if he does have a medical problem. This is a guy who's, official physician says he's 6'3", 218, and will live till the healthiest physical specimen on earth, and will live to 200. We know that they're going to lie to us about the health. We saw it during COVID where they tried to cover up that he had COVID, and he probably did the debate with Biden with COVID, putting him at risk. I mean, they will lie about his health no matter what, because he has to project this strongman image. So we have to dig deep and speculate and see he never talked about the bruising on his hand or anything. I mean, it was like he has to be smoked out and asked about it. So we know there's something seriously wrong. He's dragging his right leg around. He's got the cankle thing going. He's got the constant bruising on the hand, the raspy voice, moving slow, sounding like shit, looking like shit. He's definitely circling the drain medically. I mean, take this 6-day period, okay? This was not his original schedule. He was supposed to go to Bedminster. That was his schedule. And then all of a sudden, last minute it changes. All his public events change. And not only that, he avoids the press. I mean, press is trying to see, they're kept far away from him. No one from the press was allowed anywhere near him. The other thing, I have my sources at his golf courses that play golf with him, that work at his course. We always put out clips of him playing golf. We hit all of our sources during these time periods when he's supposedly playing golf in Virginia, because he changed it from Bedminster to Virginia. We couldn't get anything. I mean, we got a couple shots. Then adds more fuel to the fire. They put out pictures, his social media people,
which were old,
claiming like this is him today, and it wasn't. They were old pictures of like a week. They put out a picture of him with John Gruden, a disgraced former football coach who was fired for racist and misogynistic emails. I mean, he was playing golf with him. They put that out. Oh, he's playing golf with John Gruden. That was a week before. So, all of this stuff leads to the suspicion. Throwing a garbage bag full of stuff out the window
and
of
then
the White House.
It. Yeah, saying it was
what
AI.
The heck is in the bag? They asked Trump about it. He says, "Oh, that's not a real video. That's AI." Yeah. When his own White House spokesperson confirmed that it was a legitimate video. So when they're constantly lying to you and hiding things, it leads to speculation and suspicion. I question that he is going to be able to finish this term. I think it would be very ironic for Joe Biden to outlive him, given all the stuff that they were saying about Biden. And what about what JD said? I have no problem with anybody who wants to speculate on this stuff.
JD came out the other day and said, I'll be ready to take over if anything terrible happens. And I was like, where did that come from?
As soon as I heard that, I said, Trump is not going to like that comment at all. Yeah. He doesn't want anybody to even speculate that something could happen to him. I mean, he doesn't like that kind of talk.
We have to finish, but we didn't even get time to go through all of our stuff. We had other stuff, but
we had a lot more, but it is what it is.
The show can only be so long. I mean, people have lives to go to. All right, listen, we'll come back next Wednesday and bring you another Uncovered. The audio podcast drops later tonight. Don't forget to share the show, comment down below, check out the sponsors down there too, and join us next week as we uncover some more. Thanks a lot, Ron.
All right, see you next week.